Hey friends, how's it going? It's Michael Parker and welcome back. Now that summer is officially here in the Northern Hemisphere, many of us will think of going to the beach, the lake, or lounging poolside to avoid the heat. But did you know that proximity to water and even the experience of seeing a photo of it or hearing it in an app can bring you cognitive benefits? Well, it does, and that state now has a name. It's called Blue Mind. The man who coined the term and wrote the book of the same name is my guest today, Dr. Wallace J. Nichols. He has been called a keeper of the sea by GQ magazine, a visionary by Outside magazine, a water warrior by Aquatics International. He's a renowned marine biologist, a self-described water lover, a turtle nerd, an explorer, an embarrassing dad, and a creator of useful words. Today, we will discuss the healing quality of water, what blue mind is versus red or gray mind, why float tanks have become so popular again, and how being in the water can create a space of higher communication. First of all, what is the essence of the idea of blue mind?
Yeah. Blue mind's a phrase that refers to, like you said, this kind of familiar feeling that when you're near, in, on, or under the water you love, you kind of get a brain break. You kind of feel refreshed. You feel like you want to tackle the day. It's a mildly meditative, calming place that when we're in our blue mind by ourselves, it centers us. It's a reset button. But when we're in our blue mind with others, it connects us to each other. With my kids, we have better conversations when we're in a pool or in a hot tub. For some reason, there's just kind of this interpersonal aspect to it as well. So blue mind is just a phrase that refers to that set of feelings and emotions that a lot of people would say, yeah, why do I need a book? I've felt this way my whole life. Thank you very much. I'll just keep doing what I do. But there's a lot of other people, like you referred to just a minute ago, who are feeling what I call red mind, which is anxiety, or gray mind, which is burnout and depression. And they're not sure what to do about it. And we have a crisis right now and kind of in a lot of different realms of society. And the drugs aren't working. The just buck up and deal is not working. So right. Maybe some more tools, so that's kind of where the news hits this conversation kind of directly. Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. So you are, I guess, a marine biologist. Are you still a marine biologist practicing? Is that what you do every day, or is that?
Yeah. It's expanded. My interest in the ocean has expanded kind of to all waters, lakes, rivers, oceans, creeks, ponds, pools, tubs, rainstorms, and even, ice and fog. Remember, we learned that in third grade. Water comes in those three states: solid, liquid, and gas. So when we're talking about water, we may be talking about the frozen kind or the vapor kind, as well as the liquid kind. So I started studying the ocean and the animals that live in the ocean, and just always noticed that the people, myself and the people I worked with, were a better version of themselves, a little bit happier, a little more creative when we were out in the blue space. And I was curious about that, about the science, like what's going on, and wanted to read a book about it, but couldn't find a book about it. And so, there's a vacuum, and I filled the vacuum with this book that I wrote. So that's taken over. This work has taken over a bit of my life, and led me to conversations like this that I when I was studying sea turtles, may not have thought I'd be on a radio program talking to a guy like you about emotional health, but here we are. So
water has this mystical place in our lives for those of us who can accept that. And water's amazing.
It is. It truly is. And I think we've known this for all of human history, and every spiritual tradition has it in their sacred text. This is not a new idea by any means, but we sort of slipped away from it a bit. I didn't learn any of this in school. I wish we taught it in our educational system. I wish every kid that graduated high school knew what your kids know and what my kids know, that water is the place to go when you feel like crap. And if you're feeling distracted by all the technology, or you're feeling like you just need a big reset, or you just want to boost your creativity, I wish every human being knew that. It would transform healthcare as well as our relationship with our lakes and our rivers and our oceans, which I think would be a good thing. Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, tell me this. Did you speak to, I'm guessing that you've done this, so pardon the newbie question, but when you were looking for a book on how this works on the brain, did you talk to neurologists? Did they have an answer why it
Yeah,
works the way it works?
I would say more questions than answers, but
Yep.
there were, at the time when I wrote the book, which is nearly a decade ago, there were analogous bodies of research. For example, your brain on music, your brain on the forest. There were books all readily available about neuroplasticity, your ability to change your brain. Your brain on happiness was kind of a cool new topic that people were interested in. And so I drew on the existing analogous research and then asked a different question. What about water? Is the rhythm of the ocean, for example, is that like the rhythm of music? Does it put us into a cadence or a trance like place? Well, it does. Yeah. If you've ever fallen asleep to the sound of the ocean, you know that it's mesmerizing and like music, like a steady drum beat. So there were bodies of research on your brain on nature, your brain on exercise, your brain on music, your brain on different colors. And so I pulled those threads together and then started to ask a new set of questions. Like, what about floating in the water? What about surfing? What about showers and baths? And since then, we've seen really an explosion of new research from medical schools and clinical research on this idea, and all of it points in the same direction. I say none of it says no, water's not good for you. All of it points in the same direction, that we kind of intuitively knew, that when you feel too much red mind or gray mind, if you jump in the water or go sit by it or skim the leaves off the pool, you feel a little better. And in some cases, a lot better.
Just so people are clear on this, we're not talking about politics. Explain what the blue, the red, and the gray minds are before we move into our next segment on other aspects of this.
Yeah, it's not the political use of these colors. Blue refers to that calm, cool, collected, creative place that we go when we're near water or just thinking of our water. Red mind refers to our new normal. The red mind is good. It's what helps us compete, strive, thrive, and win. But if it's all we have, if all you have is that go, go, go mode, give me more caffeine and give me less sleep, and just grind, you will burn out. And that's gray mind. That's where your body and your mind say, yeah, we're done. We're taking a break, whether you want to or not. And then you feel that. And we're seeing a lot of red mind and gray mind these days, with people feel uncertain, they feel confused, they feel conflicted, they feel anxious. Our teachers, our first responders, our veterans, nurses, doctors, they're quitting because they just can't hang. So gray mind is going around. And so that blue, red, gray, it's a cartoon oversimplification of some pretty complicated things going on inside of each of us. But it's really a useful way to get people to talk about their emotional health. I don't want to be sexist here, but particularly dudes have a hard time telling you how they feel. And if you say to a guy sometimes, hey, how you feeling? They're like, they really don't know. They don't have the language. They don't feel like they can even access, and they don't want to talk about it. So when you put it in this color, blue, red, gray, it's just easier to talk about. Like, yeah, I'm feeling a little gray mind, and maybe I need some blue mind, and or I've been in red mind mode all week. It's just easier to talk about rather than the clinical terminology that comes with so much baggage.
The color is blue. Blue is cool. Blue mellows you out. Blue is pleasant to look at. It's one of my two favorite colors, and probably the one that I got black on today, but I wear a lot of blue. But Jay, talk about this. I've been listening to a lot of your interviews, and it actually goes beyond water, because you have a question that you ask people: what is your water, and what does that mean?
Yeah, that's super simple question, and anybody that wants to use that question, feel free to ask it to the people around you. Ask people, "What's your water?" and then just listen. And sometimes people will say the Atlantic or the Pacific Ocean or Lake Michigan or Mill Creek, and sometimes they go more metaphorical or symbolic. Their water may be a person, their water may be music, their water may be their food. So this idea of water can be taken both literally, but also symbolically. And the sources of Blue Mind can be, page one of Moby Dick, one of the great novels of all time. Mm-hmm. If you haven't read that lately, just Google page one of Moby Dick. It's freely available. It's like better than my book in one page. It says all of this. I'm not kidding. Herman Melville was a genius, and that book is brilliant. But it can be literature and poetry and art and film and your memories and your imagination, and just closing your eyes and thinking about the water you love starts to slow your heart rate, starts to reduce your stress, starts to reconnect you to yourself. It's a mildly meditative state that just thinking about it, you're using your powerful imagination and tapping into your blue mind wherever you are, it's really useful. So yeah, you're right. It's the color, it's everything that color represents. The blue sky, the blue waters, our lakes, our rivers, our oceans. We happen to live on a water planet. Most of the planet is covered with water. Most of our bodies are made of water, and we all spent 9.21 months, more or less. Your results may differ. Inside our own private ocean called Mom. We all swam around underwater in the dark for 9 months, and we're water beings. So this idea isn't far-fetched at all. It's very, very biological. Taps into our humanity, our own human history, and it's again literal and also symbolic. And it's just a fun conversation too. But asking people, "What's your water?" and listening to everybody's got a story. I haven't met anybody, and I've asked that question to thousands of people, and I haven't met anybody who didn't have an answer, and a really cool answer.
The minute I heard that question, because I've been listening to your interviews and things and prepping, and it's like the minute I heard the question, I got it. And for me, it is music. I love music. I love music from my youth. But an interesting thing about music, I used to buy a lot of world music for a particular retailer, Virgin Megastores here. And one of the things that I noticed, if you listen to reggae music or you listen to Hawaiian music, it actually mimics, in my opinion, if you listen to the rhythms and the way the guitars are played in Hawaiian music, or you listen to the rhythms of reggae music, it is mimicking, in my opinion, the sound of waves hitting shore.
And waves hitting shore may have inspired the first music. I mean, we weren't around to see that go down. It was a while ago, but the first humans to make music and create rhythm, it was either waves or our own heartbeat that kind of set the cadence. And so the connections are fascinating, and the water and music connection, it just goes on from there, from the rhythm to the lyrics. You hear a song about water, it it can put you into that blue mind place. A lot of the, the Hawaiian music and the reggae music, and maybe Jack Johnson and Jimmy Buffett and everybody who's ever sung about water, about the rivers and the rain. Creedence Clearwater Revival is a good
Right on.
couple good rain songs. But yeah, that's what I put on. I put on a song actually called Blue Mind by this guy, Alexi Murdoch. Whenever I arrive in a new place and I'm feeling stressed, I just put Alexi's music on, and it takes things down a notch. And but you're right. You're right. I mean, and as a dad, I feel like, dad, mom, grandma, grandpa, aunt, uncle, the greatest gift we can give our children is a deep love and appreciation of music and water. I mean, your kids will be rich for life if they have the skills to create music, to enjoy music together, and to safely get in and on and underwater for life. I mean, that the world is theirs if they have those sets of skills. And as a dad of two teenage daughters, I feel like I've done my job in those two realms.
I wish we had a pool in the current home that we're in. We do not, but the next house we have is going to have a pool again. One of my buddies is moving his family, and at one point he and I were having the conversation about buying houses, and he's actually moving his family to Vegas, which is a very dry and arid, very hot area. And he's like, hey, should we go ahead and bump up our offer so we can get a house with a pool? And I told him, it's like, look, you have a young daughter. So it's like, man, having water in the immediate proximity, you will always have entertainment and just that meditative state when the world gets crazy to go look at that pool. But water is mystical. It's magical. It soothes us. It makes us feel good. I always like to shower in the mornings. During COVID, I probably didn't shower as much as I should have, but I prefer to shower in the morning as opposed to the evening because I like that refreshing vibe that it gives to me. And Jay, talk about the idea, because I've experienced this myself. A lot of people have their best ideas or their freshest ideas when they're in water, taking that shower, sitting in a pool or swimming or something.
Yeah, you mentioned having a pool and getting the kids in the pool. And one of the things when we're in the water, one of the things it does is it removes all of the distractions. So you can't bring your laptop, your iPad, your smartphone, generally speaking, you shouldn't bring it underwater. You shouldn't drag your iMac into the shower. You shouldn't use your phone when you're swimming laps. And so you get this screen-free moment. And these days, that's a rarity for a lot of our kids or us adults. And so you get a break from the technology. Let's start with that. You're surrounded by what I call blue noise rather than white noise. It's sort of structured white noise. The water structures the sound, whether it's waves or the sound of a waterfall or a river or a creek, or a constructed waterfall, a water feature in a pool or the shower. So that sound precludes the distracting voices and other sounds of the day. So you get a break from the screens, you get a break from the auditory information, and then you get a break from the visual information when you're sitting at the edge of a pool, looking at the flicker of the light, the dancing of the water. It's mesmerizing, but it isn't full of information. There aren't faces, there aren't words, nobody's trying to sell you something. So your brain moves into what's called a soft fascination state. It's not boring.
Like it.
But it's also, it's not demanding. So you get all this bandwidth back, and your brain doesn't just turn off and go to sleep. It kicks into this blue mind state, which is really good for creativity and insight. And so, it's almost a cliche. Like, people get great ideas in the water, in the bathroom, in the bathtub, in the shower, sometimes while swimming laps. The late great neurologist, Oliver Sacks, he said he got his best ideas while swimming. So he always had a yellow legal pad on a picnic table or on the side of the pool so he could jot things down, because he'd think, wow, I'm not going to remember this if I swim 20 more laps. So I'm going to jot it down on this legal pad. Problem with that was his assistant, the woman who helped him sort of take his notes and turn them into books, sometimes couldn't read what he had written because it got wet. And so
Yeah.
she had a really hard job of deciphering wet notes on legal pads. But the point being that in the shower, you may get these brilliant ideas. I have a pro tip for that case. If you've ever seen the kids, it's like soap crayons. They're for the bathtub and the shower. Keep one of those in your shower. And when you get an idea that you really don't want to forget, it may be a song lyric, it may be just the next great business idea. Right. Jot a note on the wall of the shower with your soap crayon. And then you can wash it off later after you take a picture of it. But that's just a way to grab those ideas when they occur. Because I have those ideas and I think, I'll remember that. And you get out of the shower, you towel off, and it is gone. Like you just, it comes and goes. And,
you're on to the next thing in your head and you forgot that genius idea.
Yeah. And you thought it was the best idea in the history of ideas, and it's gone. Yeah. So, and you can't get it back. You can't find it. So, keep that soap crayons.
That's a great idea. My producer brought up an excellent topic for me to ask you about as well, which is the idea of negatively charged ions. Do you touch upon that in the book?
Yeah, there's a little bit of research that suggests the positive impact of negative ions, and so negative ions occurring where water collides. So you find it in the surf zone, at waterfalls, and there isn't a lot of research there, but that's a lot of people know about it and think that's what Blue Mind is made of, and it may be one important component, but it is also what the water takes away and what the water gives to us in terms of buoyancy. And it takes away the distractions and the noise, and takes away a lot of the information, precludes the technology, but it brings buoyancy. Some people describe being in the water as a hug, a warm hug or a cold hug, and they feel held. But we also see kids on the autism spectrum. Some of them find water to be extremely appealing, whereas they find clothing and other kinds of touch to be unappealing and distracting and disturbing. They find freedom, a sense of peace and freedom when they're in the water. So a lot of kids who are on the autism spectrum do things like surf therapy and swim therapy, and it's really good for them and really good for their caregivers, their parents, their grandparents, get a moment of joy and peace in what can sometimes be a very chaotic life. So yeah, the benefits kind of go on and on and on of water and all of its forms.
My producer mentioned that his sister has an autistic son, and baths really calm him down when he's having a bad day.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that a lot. And I just want to add to that, because of that strong attraction, sometimes kids on the autism spectrum will be drawn to water and jump into it and may not have the skills that they need to be safe in the water. So I just want to throw that out there. It's just water safety underlies this entire conversation. So, we're not promoting dangerous water-based activities and surfing waves that are too big for you, or jumping in a pool if you don't have the skills. So, and always, keep it safe out there when you're interacting with water in any form. The Blue Mind goes out the window when things get dangerous, and that's back to Red Mind, and that's not the goal. But I've heard from so many families about their kids having really peak experiences. And the other piece of that is when if you're raising a kid with special needs and special talents, you sometimes don't get a break. It's exhausting. And when you're in the water, you can look up all the different, there are a few great documentaries. It's a great new documentary called Rocco Up. It's about a kid named Rocco and his family, and he's an autistic surfer. And it's just a beautiful film about how much joy starts off, and dad is like freaking out. He's like, I wasn't planning on raising a kid with these special needs. And he's sort of feeling down. And then they start surfing together. Rocco surfs the way Rocco surfs, not the way you surf or I surf or his dad surfs or his mom surfs. It's his own thing, but it's so inspiring. And Rocco finds joy in the waves. And it reminds us that we all can, get out there and do what he's doing. But there's some great stories about transformations that happen for families, not just for the individual with the special needs. It's for everybody. Everybody gets in on it. Yeah.
I love that. Another thing that I've heard you say in your interviews, because I mentioned, my daughter made a lot of art, a lot of photography based about water, and we all have this mystical fascination with water, and we're drawn to it. You were talking about, so let's say somebody doesn't live near a body of water, but they could actually put artwork in their home that depicts water. And you even went further. You said, if you're feeling like the magic is gone, or move it around. Talk about just the appearance of water in your home.
Yeah, so art and music make Blue Mind portable. They make the feeling of awe and wonder that we have when we're at the beach or at the waterfall or in the pool even. The art and the music make that portable. You can't take the ocean and the pool with you everywhere, obviously, but you can take the art and music with you anywhere, in the car, in your office, wherever you go. So it's the beauty of art. It captures the awe and the wonder, makes it portable, and you can bring a photograph of your favorite water space, blue space, and put it on the wall in your office, and it changes the dynamic. And every time you look at it, you might, especially if you know that place intimately, you'll look at that photograph or that piece of artwork or listen to that song about it, and it'll take you there. And it'll give you a little hit of Blue Mind, even without the actual water in the room. Now, if you start to not notice your art and you're just mindlessly walking past it, move it. Just take it off the wall and put it on the opposite wall, or take it into a different room and bring that artwork into that room. And it somehow renews it. It puts it in a different context, and then you see it again. It's a simple thing. It's free. It's really easy to move your art around your house or your office, and it kind of refreshes it. So when people say, yeah, I love this conversation, but I don't live near water. First of all, yes, you do. You just may not live near a giant ocean or a great lake, but you do. Everybody lives near some body of water. You just have to go find it. And there is virtual water that you can utilize for Blue Mind, which is art and music. There's also urban water, so fountains and urban waterfronts. There's also domesticated water, your tubs, your pools, your hose, your sprinkler, your float tanks, jacuzzis, your shower. That's the domestic water. And then there's the imaginary water, which we all have in our minds. If you've ever had a wonderful water experience, you carry that memory, and all you have to do is pull it up, and your amazing brain can make it really pretty vivid if you really dive into it, so to speak. So we're never really far away from this Blue Mind toolkit. We just have to talk about it, understand it, and utilize it.
As you were naming all of those things, I had a lot of different ideas. And we have a garden room, a glassed-in garden room, and right now there's 2 cans of blue paint that I have been meaning to paint the floor with, and it's a soft kind of sea blue. And I clearly had not had this conversation with you, but we as a family all kind of intuitively understood, hey, blue calms us down. There's already an abstract piece of art in that room that's blue, so we're on the right path, and now I got to get on it. But the other thing is, I was thinking about just the sound of water, because people will have, small fountains or things in their house. Just the sound of water calms us down. I listen to a lot of binaural beats and kind of ambient music when I'm trying to plan for the show or get things together. And just a lot of that comes with water type sounds, be it rainstorms, be it crashing waves, be it thunderstorms, be it, water's just magic.
Yeah, a lot of these new apps like Calm and Headspace, and there's a whole bunch. Their number one programs in their apps are the water sounds that people go just are drawn to that to calm themselves, to boost their creativity, to center their mind, to prepare for a big show or a big game or a big event. That that those are the sounds that help us kind of get into that place. And we're surrounded by visual and auditory stimulation, and we're on a news program, 24/7 news, right? But sometimes you have to step away. I know it's not
Absolutely.
maybe not the right thing to say on a news program, is I turn it off sometimes.
I say it all the time.
And yeah, don't turn on another news program and stick your head in that one.
Yeah.
Turn it off and get the quiet. But then rather than put on music with lyrics and complexity, which there's a time and a place for that, maybe consider just the sound of rain or the sound of the ocean. I like to make my own recordings and then listen to those. So if I'm out at night and we're on the beach, I will take my voice memo app and do a 15-minute recording and then listen to that on loop. And there's something about the fact that it's my water. I was there. It takes me back to that night. Or if I'm near a creek, or if it's a rainstorm, just record it and then listen to it later on when you need it. And there's something about it being your own, and you're part of your own lived experience, that makes it the emotional valence of it is just stronger. And there's another little tip. And again, it's free. These are like life hacks that are free and available to all of us kind of all the time.
It almost feels like we should maybe prisons should be painted blue on the inside to like mellow people out. Like maybe healing facilities should be painted blue. I don't know. Has anyone looked into that?
Yeah, in fact, there's some good studies of the application of blue mind theory in prisons and prison-like environments. So you may not be familiar with the interior of a prison. You may be familiar with the interior of an office building that feels kind of like one, or a school that feels kind of like one. But there's some good research, particularly on solitary confinement. And I actually gave a keynote at a prison management and education conference in Cape May, New Jersey, a few years ago. And we talked about how we might bring blue mind science and practice into the prison systems. And in order to take care of those who are incarcerated, so they don't hurt themselves and they don't hurt each other, to take care of the people who make their living in prison education and management, so the staff, but also the families of those who are incarcerated and those who work in prisons, because their families are under all kinds of stress too. Those who are incarcerated obviously are, and those who work there are under a special kind of stress. And so if we shared this blue mind idea to people who, let's just say, hopefully are rehabilitating and passing through their time being incarcerated, those who are not passing through, who work there, and those who are affected by both of those groups, wouldn't that be great? Now, of course, we're not going to build Olympic-sized swimming pools, most likely inside prisons, but the virtual and imaginary kinds of uses of water can definitely be applied. So, and then let's take it to the prison-like environments, our schools sometimes, our office buildings. This may sound familiar to you. You may have gone to a school that just felt windowless and felt drab. You may work in an office that feels that way. There are things you can do to change that environment by pulling blue mind theory, putting it into action architecturally and from a design perspective, whether it's painting the floors, the walls, adding sound to the experience. In the workplace, The sound of the human voice is the most distracting and greatest source of anxiety. Conversations that you
Yeah.
aren't part of, that you don't want to be part of, especially when the offices have kind of dropped the walls and kind of gone to the open floor plan thing. Turns out the sound of water is the best mask of the human voice. So there are places we can use these blue mind ideas to reduce anxiety in the workplace, to reduce anxiety in our homes, and even in schools and prisons and offices. Yeah.
This makes great sense to me. Hey, while you and I were talking about that, because I'm just picturing blue walls. I mean, you wouldn't even have to put them everywhere, but in a prison facility, it would make sense because it could help them hopefully not be as angst ridden amongst themselves. But I want to move on. Another thing that came to my mind, because you mentioned in the womb earlier, because I love the idea of just the power of the color along with the sounds and all these other things that have to do with blue. But when we talk about isolation tanks or float tanks, oftentimes that's just the sensation of, I guess, a non-sensation, and it's that floating, being suspended out of time and space.
Are, I would call that extreme blue mind. That's like way over on one end of the spectrum, and that's where the water, you're in water, you're floating, there's no light, there's no sound, there's no gravity, you lose track of time, you can literally lose track of your own body, and
Yes.
and not be able to tell where your physical body begins and ends. And the research on floating is really mind-blowing, and really, I think, will transform healthcare. There's a guy named Justin Feinstein who's at the Laureate Institute for Brain Research in Tulsa, Oklahoma, and well-funded lab. And he's been looking at the clinical application of float therapy to anxiety disorders and post-traumatic stress for young women with body image issues, body dysmorphia, anorexia, veterans and first responders dealing with acute post-traumatic stress. All of these things making life nearly impossible for those individuals and for their families, frankly. And what he's finding is floating in water is among, if not the best things you can do for those conditions, those anxious, depressed, and post-traumatic stress conditions. Pretty exciting. You know, I standard equipment for any kind of therapeutic center should be a float tank. For any hospital should be a pool and a set of float spas. That's medicine of the future. To really utilize the blue mind ideas, the blue mind science, put it into action for those who need it most, those whose careers are high stress, the people who are serving us daily, who are running to the disease, running to the gunshots, running to the bombs on our behalf. The doctors, the nurses, the teachers, the first responders, the veterans, and the journalists who every day wake up and say, I'm going to digest just a crap load of bad news. I'm going to tell you about it in a way that doesn't tear you apart. And day after day after day, we don't want these people who serve us to burn out. We can't afford it.
Right.
We can't afford what's our teachers and our first responders to burn out. So what can we do? Well, Blue Mind is one tool for the toolkit, or the tool belt, if you will.
I think we've got that clip. So, Dave, can you play it now?
This is what it is, okay? I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now, you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now, water can flow, or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Straight up Jedi.
Totally. Yeah, who needed a book? I don't know why I even wrote a book. I should have just said, listen to that guy. He's got it.
I'm glad you did. And you know what else? You have given me new ideas, because, I had only done isolation tanks the old school way, which is a little scary at first. You're kind of like, you got to kind of surrender to it and finally be okay with it. So when they returned kind of in favor, and Joe Rogan, a lot of people started talking about them, I noticed that, well, wait a minute. So people are in flotation tanks now with soft lighting? Well, that's cheating. Or they're listening to music. But no, after our conversation now, no, I see it in a completely, this is going to sound like a pun, I see it in a different light. But it's just good. However you want to do it is the way you should do it.
That's right. And, what we're seeing is an explosion of, elite thinkers, elite athletes, elite musicians, Navy SEALs, all kinds of people that, the Warriors basketball team.
Yes.
I don't want to get political here by talking basketball, but they've done all right. And Steph Curry floats, and Klay Thompson jumps in the ocean when he's having a bad day, or goes out in his boat. He swears by it. So, you've got lots of applications of Blue Mind among those who the proof is in the result. And it's not the only thing they do, of course, but it's part of their mental wellness toolkit. It's working for them. So, if this is resonating, come up with a plan. It's the things you can do daily that take a few minutes, the things that you can do weekly or on the weekend, the things that maybe you can only get to once a month or once a year. And then the long reach goals of, the expedition to the South Pacific that that you're dreaming of, because that dream of that water is also Blue Mind. Yeah.
This is outstanding. So Jay, tell everybody how they find everything Blue Mind, you. I'm not sure if you're on social media platforms. I think you are, because I think I followed you on a few today, but tell everybody how they find everything that you're on.
Well, the best thing to do is just put the phrase Blue Mind in quotes and Google it, but then add a word, whatever you're into. If you're into sports, if you're into raising kids, if you're into pools, if you're into sailing, surfing, float tanks, just pair up the phrase Blue Mind with the keyword that represents your interest, and you will find a ton of stuff.
Dr. Nichols' book is Blue Mind, The Surprising Science That Shows How Being Near, In, On, or Underwater can make you happier, healthier, more connected, and better at what you do. You can find it at any bookstore of your choice. His website is wallacejnichols.org, and you can also just type Blue Mind into the search engine of your choice. By the way, we are currently in the annual 100 Days of Blue Mind Challenge, which extends from Memorial Day through Labor Day. So you know what to do. Get yourself near or in to some water. Thanks, you guys, for listening. Please rate and review this podcast and subscribe to Michael Parker Media for more episodes. I'll be back in a few days with another one. And until next time, keep your heart and your mind open. Peace.